Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Monday, January 4th, 2021 City Council meeting of the City of Bel Air Beach. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Robin Aki. Here. Councilmember Mark Bean.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley. Here. Councilmember Rita Swope. Here. Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
And City Attorney Fred Riley.
Here.
And let the record just note that Jody Shirley isn't through telephonically. Patty, if Jody needs to speak, if she'll just indicate to you, because obviously I can't see her, so she just let me know, or just raise a hand or something, and I'll get hold of you. Okay, first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? So moved. Motion by Maura Bean, second.
Second.
Second by Dave Gaddis. Any discussion? Citizens, any questions or on the agenda? Rick Schaaf?
Good evening, Rick Schott, 115 13th Street, Bel Air Beach, Florida. I just want to comment that I received an email not long ago about a gathering sponsored by the City Council to honor our police department.
Rick, can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yes.
This is just on the agenda. We're going to do citizen comments in a second.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Any comments on the agenda? Back to council. Maura Bean, last word. I'll entertain a voice vote. All in favor of approving the agenda as is, aye? Aye. Any nays? It's approved unanimously. Patty, I can't hear Jody Shirley. I assume that was an aye, correct?
Jody? Jody? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, unanimous then.
Thank you.
Okay, so now citizen comments, Mr. Shaw. Just as Mr. Shaw did, if anybody wants to speak, please come up to the podium, give your name and address. We have 3 minutes, and please adhere to our code of conduct, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry for being out of order there. But I did notice that there was a small recognition ceremony here for our police officers. And it may well be that I didn't get the memo, and certainly the City Council has a right to do whatever they want to do in that area. But I'd just like to put out that in the future, if something like that is going to be done, something as important as recognizing our law enforcement, it might be not a bad idea, or it might be a good idea to put something out to the citizens so that some of us could have the opportunity to come here and say thank you to our law officers for all they do for us day in and day out. So I just ask for that to maybe be considered in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Citizens, any other comments? Seeing no other hands, I'll close citizen comments at this time. Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, are you here to present tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please come up. And Deputy, if you'll just give your name for the record, right up here.
Deputy Kelly, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. My supervisor is on the way. He's running late, got hung up on a call, so I'm here in his place for the moment.
Deputy, I don't know, you might be kind of caught by surprise because you weren't supposed to do the presentation, but
Yes,
do you have any information on the reports? You got the November 2020 report. Do you have any information on that for us?
No, sir, he'll have that, and he's incoming, so we'll have that information for you shortly.
Council, would anybody have a problem if we just move this to the point where Deputy Kelly comes in? Okay. I'll be looking to the back. If you'll just wave to me when he enters, I'll bring him back up as soon as we can. Okay? Thank you. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. I'll read them by title. And just for anyone who's not familiar, the consent agenda, if approved, there's no discussion on this. So if someone wants something off the consent agenda, speak now, or else it will get approved in total here. So item number 4 is approval of the December 7th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. Item number 5 is approval of the December 7th, 2020 City Council work session minutes. Item number 6 is approval of the December 21st, 2020 special city council meeting minutes. And item number 7 is authorization to award a professional services contract for stormwater improvements on 12th and 13th Streets, the explanation being design and engineering in the amount of $32,500. Mr. Reeves, I just want to clarify, that change that you had, that's the next one down, it's not this one, right? It's the later stormwater issue? The one that you gave me?
No, that's item 9.
9, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Okay, so do I have a motion to move 4, 5, 6, and 7?
So moved.
Moved by Rita Swope, second by Maura Beam. Discussion, council? I'm sorry, this is consent agenda. There's no discussion on this. So we're going to approve the motion now before us is to approve the entire consent agenda. I'll read it again. Approval of the December 7th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. Approval of the December 7th, 2020 City Council work session minutes. Approval of the December 21st, 2020 special City Council meeting minutes. And authorization to award a professional services contract for stormwater improvements on 12th and 13th Street. The description being design and engineering in the amount of $32,500. A yes vote approves all items 4, 5, 6, and 7. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bean.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis.
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley. Aye. Councilmember Swope.
Aye.
Councilmember Aki.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. So it passes 7-0. The consent agenda is approved. We move to our regular agenda. Item number 8, consideration of ordinance 21-01, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Delaware Beach, Florida, providing for the amendment of Chapter 2, Boards, Committees, and Commissions of the City Code of Ordinances relating to the creation of an Administration Advisory Committee, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for the amendment of Chapter 2, Boards, Committees, and Commissions of the City Code of Ordinances relating to the creation of an Administration Advisory Committee, providing for a copy to be kept on file, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. The description is ordinance to develop a standing advisory committee for continuity and expediency. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Gunn. Second? Second by Maura Beam. Vice Mayor.
I do have one suggestion, and I'll pitch that before I see if there's any consensus before I ask for an amendment. And that would be, rather than call it a administrative committee, call it a citizens advisory committee. And I think that just speaks to communications, not only to the residents, but from the residents. It gives them a formal engagement in city affairs. So, I don't know if there's any acting for that sort of thing. If there is, I'll go ahead and ask for the amendment.
It makes sense. I think that's what you've been talking about all along for the last 2 or 3 times that this has been introduced. So yeah, I don't have an issue. I don't know about anybody else.
I'm good with it.
So
Guys, giving you a thumbs up.
So-
Rollins giving you a thumbs
at
up.
this time, I'll go ahead and ask for an amendment to this, and instead that we call it the Citizens Advisory Committee of the City of Delaware Beach.
And we have a second on that?
Second.
Seconds by Rita Swope. So now discussion on just the name change. Any discussion on that? No discussion. Citizens, just on the name change. Anybody have any comments on the name change only? Come back to you, Glenn, got the last word on that, and then I'm going to take the vote to make just the name change, and then we'll vote the whole thing.
I'm ready to call the question.
Okay. So the amendment before us is to change the name from the Administration Advisory Committee, any place that it appears in here. I'm not going to reread it all. I'll try and do it on the first pass, but that would be changed to Citizen Advisory Committee. A yes vote will approve that name change only. Madam Clerk, on the amendment only.
Councilmember Aki. Aye. Councilmember Swope. Aye. Councilmember Shirley. Aye. Councilmember Gaddis.
Aye.
Councilmember Bean.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. So the amendment passes. It's now going to be called the Citizen Advisory Committee. We're back now to the discussion that we initially had, which is the formation of this committee and the consideration of ordinance 21-01. When you started this, you kind of started with the amendment, so I'll come back to you if you have any thoughts to complete on it before we move
I have
on.
nothing further. I think it's pretty much a well-rounded, well thought out. I'll yield.
Anyone else? I do agree. I think this is a good committee. I think it will save us a lot of time. My only question is just in the administration of this committee, and it really comes down to how the city collects the information. It's a very important committee, and it asks for people to be very well-rounded. I think our present application that we use, and it has nothing to do with this ordinance, but it's how we're going to enact this ordinance, it doesn't really provide, it says attach a CV or a resume if you want. I really think on this committee, we need to see what your background is. We're asking for people to be very well-rounded, have a great background, and I think it would be nice to know what people's background is, because sometimes we get kind of generic responses, I think, to some of the replies that we get. It would really be nice to know what people's business and or city background is. So it doesn't change this. I think it just maybe puts a spot that it's kind of mandatory to give us your background, something more, it's like a job application. That was just my only thought on it.
No, and I agree with that. It's a very important aspect of the city and its input. So maybe we put a little more specificity to the vetting process and have them appear in person and say a few words and give us an idea and answer questions.
I think that's excellent also. And I also want to personally thank you. I had my reservations about this, but that it was a 3-year committee, and I see that that was changed to 2 years. It's corresponding now with all our other committees. I'm totally behind this. Anyone else on council? I'll move to the citizens. There are no citizen comments. Back to you, Glenn Gunn, for the last word before I call it.
No, I would just speak to your fellow neighbors, and we've had some great inputs from the residents before, so if you're in attendance tonight and you have any interest, please step forward and let the city clerk or the city manager know. We certainly appreciate all the help and input we can get. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to call the question. Item number 8, consideration. I'm going to try and, Glenn, if I miss it, you just feel free to cut right in here. I'm going to try and put Citizen Advisory Committee in. So consideration of ordinance 21-01, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, providing for the amendment of Chapter 2, Boards, Committees, and Commissions of the City Code of Ordinances relating to the creation of a Citizen Advisory Committee, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for the amendment of Chapter 2, Boards, Committees, and Commissions of the City Code of Ordinances related to the creation of a Citizens Advisory Committee, providing for a copy to be kept on file, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. And I should point out that this is the first reading. We'll need a second reading of this if it passes tonight. So this is first reading, so everyone knows. To get past an ordinance, we need 2 readings. So this is the first one. Madam Clerk, a yes vote will bring this to that second vote and move it forward.
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley. Aye. Councilmember Swope. Aye. Councilmember Aki. Aye. Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye, so it's unanimous, 7-0, it passes. It'll be on our next agenda for its second reading. If it passes, then it becomes ordinance that is changed. Madam Clerk, would you please, for the next reading, make that change that we had with the Citizen Advisory Committee? That's the only change that was approved.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9 is consideration of resolution. Okay, it's resolution 2020-101. A resolution of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, amending and restating resolution 2020-09 in its entirety, authorizing the issuance of a stormwater utility system revenue note series 2021 in the principal amount of not to exceed $45,000 to fund the acquisition and installation of capital improvements necessary for the provision of stormwater management services in the city, providing that the Series 2021 note shall be a limited obligation of the city, payable from certain stormwater fees as provided herein, providing for the rights and remedies of the owner of the Series 2021 note, making certain covenants and agreements in connection therewith, and providing for an effective date. Description on this is it authorizes the issuance of a stormwater utility revenue note not to exceed $45,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I had a tie there. Who was first? Was it Peter Swope? Okay, and then I'm done. Move to read it for discussion.
Now, I think we discussed this through early before, so I'm ready to go ahead. If anybody else has any discussion to move it forward.
Council? One question for the city attorney. You've read this through. You're satisfied with it from a legal perspective?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other council comments? Citizen comments? Back to council, ending with Rita Swope.
Go ahead and call for the question.
This is item number 9. Oh, wait, one other point. This is, you're supposed to remind me, Lynn. Lynn told me that tonight we got a blue line copy placed on our desks here. Section 9 was amended by the instruction of the bank, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and Chris Rose sent this amendment,
Mhm.
so the one we will sign, it's page 8, basically, it's just changing some wording.
I'm going to read that, yes.
Yeah.
So the change is, it says, in settling the rate of the stormwater fee for each fiscal year, the city shall ensure that the net revenues to be collected shall be equal to or exceed 1.25 times the annual interest and principal payments coming due on the Series 2021 note in such fiscal year. Does that change anybody's ideas on this? Anybody want to say anything on council? Plain done.
I would just ask for the benefit of the people who are in attendance tonight, if the city manager could just take 30 seconds and recap what this is for, just so that everybody in the audience understands.
Mayor and council, this is for the bond validation that we did earlier in the spring. We went to court to get validated, and this is one of the requirements of the bond. It's a 3-year loan. The interest rate is 3.75%, and as we already stated, it won't exceed $45,000. What we're going to utilize it for is to buy the check valves for the rest of the streets down and get a head start on up to 18th Street. To get a head start on putting those check valves in before we get to the point where we work on their stormwater system.
In the validation process, that's kind of like we bring suit against ourselves to make a legal determination of how strong this stormwater policy is.
Correct.
Thank you.
Lynn, I have one follow-up question to that. This puts an obligation to us that our net revenues to be collected shall be equal or exceed 1.25 times the interest rate. I know this personally, I don't think that's any issue, but I just want to hear it from you that that's not going to be an issue with collection. I think
It's
we have
not
way
an
more than that.
issue. I think our estimated collections are like 170,000 a year, so this
I knew it was well over 100. Okay. Good. I'm going to go back to the citizens in case there's any comments because I just added that piece. Is there anything from the citizens? Back to council. Let's call this. So, item number 9 is consideration of resolution 2021-01, a resolution of the city of Bel Air Beach, Florida, amending and restating resolution 2020-09 in its entirety, authorizing the issuance of a stormwater utility system revenue note series 2021 in the principal of not to exceed $45,000 to fund the acquisition and installation of capital improvements necessary for the provision of stormwater management services in the city, providing that the Series 2021 note shall be a limited obligation of the city payable from certain stormwater fees as provided herein, providing for the rights and remedies of the owner of the Series 2021 note, making certain covenants and agreements in connection therewith, and providing for an effective date. A yes vote passes this. There is no second reading. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley. Aye. Councilmember Swope,
Aye.
Councilmember Agi. Aye. Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye, it passes 7-0. This is approved. City Manager, you'll move forward with this then?
Yes.
Okay. I see the sheriff has arrived. You ready to give that report? Okay, welcome. Come on up.
Happy New Year to everyone. Sorry for my tardiness, got a situation in our city, I had to go take care of real quick first. But we had a good ending to the year. We had no other major calls in the month of December from what I can see. So next month's report should be about like our normal report. For November 2020, we did have one larceny this month. I can see that we did have one arrest on a felony for possession of a controlled substance, one for possession of drug paraphernalia, and a DUI. But that was only 2 people total arrested for the month of November. For our regular monthly activity in the city, most of it was self-initiated once again, mostly house checks, directed patrols. We did have, shows 93 traffic stops this past month, and there's only 2 crashes, and we had 124 citations and warnings issued in the month of November. So, hope everyone had a good New Year. Did anybody have any questions reference monthly report?
Sure, I did, maybe it's just a typo or placed in the wrong line, but we have a felony in November 2020 that says forcible sex offense, and you didn't mention that, so I just wondered.
I just went back to page 1. I was looking the wrong month on that. Yeah, I will get some information on that for you. Let me step in the back room. I did not see that in the report prior to now, so I will look that up for you, and I'll get you information on that as soon as I can.
That's out of character for our
Yeah,
city, so if you could
absolutely,
get us
yeah.
some information, if you don't have it, immediately, if you could just get it to
No,
my
I
city
will.
manager.
I will get that for you before the end of this meeting, okay?
That'll be wonderful.
Okay.
Just signal to me when you're ready if you want to speak
Yes,
again.
Mr. Mayor, well, thank you.
Any council comments or questions? Citizens, any questions for the sheriff? It's great to hear that December was a good month, so yeah, let's just find out.
I think I saw very few offenses for the month of December, so I think we're gonna look good next month.
That's
So let me
good.
go look this up for you, and
Thank
I'll
you.
let you know when I find it.
I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you
sir.
very much. Okay, we're back to the regular agenda. We're now on item 10. This is the consideration of creating a City of Bel Air Beach policy to specifically address remote attendance as well as a quorum physical presence for the rapidly changing manner of conducting business electronically. The description says to develop a concept for remote attendance by City Council and the residents in alignment with the Florida's Government in the Sunshine Law and budgeting, acquisition, and implementation of the necessary equipment. So first, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Wolf makes the motion. Second. I think that was Marv, or was it Dave? Fight it out. Marv. I'll go to Rita Swope.
Yeah. First, we'd like to ask who put this on the agenda,
That was me.
and I'll go ahead and defer to you, Vice Mayor Gunn.
Thank you. If everyone will dig through their stack of enclosures in front of them, they'll find a 4-pager with just some slides on it. I put some notes and thoughts for everyone. I just want to make sure that Jody can hear me on the phone. Sometimes I know being on the other end there, it's kind of tough here.
Yeah, it's very difficult, but.
Yeah, okay. I'll do my best here. So I'm looking at the slides. There's 2 slides on each page. I'm not sure there's enough for the audience or if there's any out there. But in essence, what I'm trying to do is just bring the city policy into alignment with what we've been basically doing during all the emergencies. And as I started doing some research on this thing, what I find is a lot of other municipalities have had standing policies in effect since the 2010-2014 timeframe. So what we've been doing isn't far from what the norm is on this thing. But along with everything else that I've always been preaching is I would like to institutionalize this policy. I would like to have it in writing so that everybody can refer to it and know exactly what the foundation is and the principles from which we operate. So let me just run through this very quickly. The goal of this whole thing is basically to develop a concise, common sense written policy that outlines attendance, including electronic, at public meetings for the elected officials as well as the residents. If you go through the second page there, the third slide, the policy should, and what I've done is
Excuse
encapsulate.
me, let me just interrupt you for a second. Point of information. I don't have that document. You're next. Thank you. Continue.
Okay, so to just encapsulate some of the things we're trying to capture with this, we all lead very busy, complex lifestyles, and this really dovetails very nicely with just the way we work and live today, as well as how we conduct business. So in essence, this policy should number one, enable the effective and efficient conduct of city business. We definitely need to align with the scope and intent of all the Florida statutes, the Bel Air Beach Charter and code requirements, and of course our strategic plan. We hope to foster participation by elected officials and residents. And when I say residents, it's not only to attend these meetings, but prior to this, we have been a little tight on attendance requirements, so that precluded busy working people who have busy traveling schedules from participating in municipal government. And hopefully this will maybe bring some of those people into the fold. The policy needs to engender a sense of community, promote two-way communication, discussion, feedback, and the positive exchange of ideas. And of course, as we found out during this whole COVID thing, augment safety and the flexibility in case of emergencies. So far as the background goes, we need to go out. I've done a cursory benchmarking of some other municipalities, and I've actually enclosed a resolution there from Illinois, and it dates back to 2014. So this is nothing new. People have been doing this for a long time, and as I address some of the things we need to include in this thing, you can see right in that resolution that it hits on most of those topics, and we can probably use a lot of the other municipalities as a boilerplate for what we want to do and really kind of speed up this process. In the previous background information that was sent out, there was a white paper by this Robert Eschenfelder, and again, it goes back to 2010, and he discusses the modern sunshine laws in Florida and how attending public meetings electronically is basically consistent with all the sunshine requirements imposed by the Florida statute. In the white paper, he did talk about a quorum, and his recommendation is to leave it unless we find that the Florida statutes have changed since 2010, but to go ahead and leave those as an in-person requirement so that in other words, a meeting is not considered a meeting and not able to transact business that's binding on the city unless you have a quorum in person at the meeting place. Sunshine requirements, just a quick overview, meeting held at an accessible public place where public officials may hear each other and all other speakers, and in quasi-judicial matters, public officials and the parties can see exhibits and other evidence. Obviously, these are all things we're going to strive for if we meet electronically. We would like to be able to not only see and hear all the other elected officials, but the residents need to be able to see and hear us, and if they want to speak and engage the city council, then they need to be able to do that, and we also need a format so that we can present documents and that sort of thing for everyone to view. So far as the next steps go, draft, review, edit, and enact a written policy that addresses the use of electronic technology for these purposes. I took an educated guess, 3 months, and I think that's just the most exorbitant time frame. I think if we can find a good benchmark and use their boilerplate, we can speed up this process very quickly. We want to be able to cover such things as attendance, quorum, voting procedures, and resident participation. And lastly, outfit the council chambers with the appropriate technology to allow an interaction of in-person attendance as well as a remote electronic attendance. City manager and his staff has already started that. He's got a big screen ready to go in the back, but I think we need to just kind of sit down and conceptualize how best to do this. We want to be able to see each other, even if we're sitting up here, if we're sitting at home. Citizens should be able to see us and speak, and then we need to figure out how we're going to work the process. Who's going to actually staff this thing and control the inputs from the citizens and that sort of thing. I broke it down, conceptualizing, determining the procedures, budgeting, doing the initial acquisition, and staffing and training the personnel. I come up with an outside figure of 10 months. I think we can easily shave it down. So we're probably talking anywhere from 9 months to a year, a little more than that. And that sort of approach could obviously be phased in. I mean, tonight we've got Ms. Shirley calling in or dialing in. So, I mean, we can start ramping this thing up and just understand where we are now and where we want to go and how we're going to get there. So, that pretty much covers all of that. There is one baseline thing left, and that's in the actual section 2-59 of our charter that talks about the essence of a quorum. The first section addresses the makeup and the purpose of a quorum, and then the last portion of it talks about, and I can read that verbatim, in the absence of a quorum, the mayor shall, at the assistance of other council members present, compel the attendance of the absent council members, which shall delay a meeting for no longer than 30 minutes. Now, to me, that's kind of a loose end of this thing. We've had numerous discussions with this thing, and there seems to be perhaps some disagreement in how that's to be interpreted or what that actually means. So I would like to take the time and a couple minutes of discussion here to figure out what everybody's thoughts are on that. As I read through that, it's a multi-part kind of requirement there. The first part is it's at the insistence of other council members present. It's not a unilateral decision of any member present to decide what the action is that's going to be taken. The second part that is kind of nebulous to me is this word compel. I'm not quite sure what that means, and I think we need to perhaps open up the discussion to figure out what that's supposed to mean. And then the third part of it is basically it's not to be delayed for any longer than 30 minutes. So at this point, I can open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I'll take it back. So back to council comments. I'm going to jump in here. I stick with the idea of the remote meetings. I think other cities are doing it. Other groups that I'm on, other boards are doing it. A couple ideas. Some places, some of the boards I'm on, will mandate a certain number of in-person meetings, and the rest can be virtual. Okay, we ran the city for 6 months on virtual meetings, and it started off rocky because nobody knew what was coming, and we ramped up, and by the end, I think we were doing very well with it. So it does work. I don't think that there's anything that compels. Right now, I think the idea, and I looked through this with the charter and our ordinances, I think the idea right now is that we be here in person, but I don't think that's a requirement that we're stuck with. We can change that, and based on that law article that you sent out, they said basically that, well, the Attorney General apparently is all over the place on their interpretation of it, but they said that, basically a quorum doesn't necessarily have to be in person. It can be a meeting of members. So I think we can look at this because it doesn't have to necessarily be in person. It doesn't have to be in person every single time. The technology we have at least the skeleton of right now, and we can probably expand that better. There was something in this article that I thought was very good. A lot of us with technology, we like it. There's other people who don't own a computer or a smartphone. We have to, if we're going to do this, have an ability to have somebody here, and there usually is somebody at headquarters where you can come in and there is a computer available to you if you don't know it. So this gives the citizens the opportunity to come in. But I think we could even think outside the box and think to maybe making a certain number of these things virtual. We hit 10,000 cases a day of COVID right now. I hope to God it's cured in a few months, but I was just talking with city manager, you can't even get an appointment to get a shot right now. So it may not be cured as quickly as we hope for it. So we could think about this long term, and there's no reason we can't change this. In terms of timeline, the only other comment I have is that the ordinance, I think we have to change ordinances, so we're looking at 2 readings on that. But the nucleus of this is a good idea, and I think we can flesh it out as a council to the detail on it. So, as for 2-59, I'll tell you what Paul Marino told me, a former attorney. He said basically, if the city council is sitting home, you can compel their attendance, which isn't totally correct because it says somebody else has to be brought by the people that are here, compel their attendance, and basically actually have them brought to the meetings. I think that's a very severe thing, but by the same token, business has to be done. People can't boycott meetings. So I would hope we never have to use something like that. I don't care if we take it out or not, but if you get a council that decides to stay home, there are new rules. You have 4 absences before they're off council, so it could be months that this city is deadlocked. So that's my own comments on it.
Okay, I'll take those in the order you presented them. Number one is, I think if you go back and you read that,
You know what, let's go back and, let's get all the council comments, and then I'll come back to you on the second go around. After he goes back to read and then works its way back down. Anyone else?
Sure. Facing the problems that the country is going through right now, I think overall, we've done pretty well to adapt whenever we're all out of the building. We also seem to do very well whenever we're all in the building. The one problem we have is the mixed setting, where you have some people here, some people on the phone, and you're always going to have people that are at home that would prefer not to come in, but are interested in our meetings. In a nutshell, the piece that's missing really is something to support some type of multimedia device here, which we've discussed a little in the past. It wasn't the correct solution for us, and I'm not really sure what is the correct solution. As far as this understanding of the compelling council members to attend, I'm not sure if we really have, this has been a major issue for us.
It barely came up. It came up almost once, so hopefully it'll never come
So,
up again.
I'm a little, I guess I'm trying to figure out where this actually came from, why this was included in this presentation. But beyond that, I am all for this moving into a solution for our future, because like you say, cases are ramping up. Even if they slow down, I don't think we're going back to what we used to know for any time soon. So I'm all for it.
Mark?
Well, I agree with Dave. The thing we have to do is get the technology in place so that, like the situation we have tonight with Councilwoman Shirley on the phone, it'd be nice to see her on video and back and forth. And again, with any call-ins that we have, the same way. I think it can be done. We just have to put some money in budget for it and get it done. Very important.
Robin or Jody?
Everybody said what I was thinking.
Patty, does Jody have any comments?
Patty, can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it, I can right now?
Yes, you
Yes,
have
the
the
mayor
floor.
recognized you. Yes.
Okay, okay, so there is an example.
Patty, I can barely hear that, and I'm like 10 feet away.
I think that Mark had mentioned me, I heard about every other word, I did not even hear the mayor.
Okay, hold on. Jody, and they can't hear you either, so could you speak a little louder?
Gosh, I'm talking right into the phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, here we go.
Is that better?
Oh, that's great.
There we go. Thank you. That was all
Okay.
my fault.
Okay, so what I was saying was I said that, just to the point of the subject here is I heard Mark speaking, but only heard very faintly, did not even hear Mayor recognize me. So it's very difficult when you call in. I mean, and quite honestly, I'm sure that Lynn didn't share with you why I'm out. The reason I'm out is because I think I might have been exposed to COVID, and I didn't until tests come back from the people who think they might have it. I didn't want to expose anyone else, so I decided it was best to stay home. We all have lives outside of being council members, and so therefore I think it's kind of important to have some flexibility. Plus, I think it's really important to have resident participation, and I think you'll have more resident participation if we have some multimedia communication available rather than this call-in, which is very, very, very difficult to hear on. So, Glenn, thank you for bringing this to the council. I appreciate it. That's it.
Jody, thank you, and I wish you the best. I hope and pray that everything will work out okay for you, and I'm sure we all do.
Thank you.
We're going to go around second round, and I think, Glenn, I know you wanted to speak, so go right ahead.
Well, I'd like to speak as
Okay,
well.
Rita as well, go ahead.
Vice Mayor Glenn, I'd like to say this is a very good presentation. I do think it's very important to get remote and accessibility to our citizens that can't make it in. I agree with the timeline and all of that and the purpose of it, and I do think we need to look at equipment, see what we do need to get. As far as the quorum thing, that did obviously come to a head in the last work session meeting. I don't think anybody should be able to compel any member to come back in, because actually it would be a violation of the sunshine law, in my opinion, for the mayor to ask any remaining council members here if there isn't a quorum here, because you're not supposed to have any conversation. So as far as compel the attendance, I'd like to see that we can just take it totally out. That's just giving somebody extra authority to threaten, basically to have other people arrested. I mean, Vice Mayor Glenn, you were threatened to be arrested on December 7th, which is a very important day in our history for our military. You are obviously served in the military, and thank you for that. But to arrest the Vice Mayor of this city on December 7th was absolutely difficult to even listen to that. So that's my opinion on this.
Vice Mayor, you're next.
I'll take them in some of the order. I agree with the idea that in-person meetings are important, but I think we need to have that flexibility, and maybe when we construct this thing, we come up with some reasonable schedule, maybe once a quarter, once a semi-annual period, you have a requirement for a full council meeting in person. That's to be decided, I guess. I think if you go back and you look at the law article, and it's going to be up to the city attorney to probably research and find out what the latest attorney general opinion is on this so far as that. But the fellow who wrote that white paper suggested you leave quorum in person to avoid any conflict if at a future date Florida decides to stay with a in-person quorum, because that would mean that if you had any meetings prior to that, it might invalidate any actions taken by the city where you did not have an in-person quorum. So that was merely his suggestion, if you go back and you look through that white paper. And I think if we can't find any changes, then that may be a good thing to think about, is just stay with an in-person quorum on that. This idea of compel, I agree with what Rita said, and maybe it slipped some memories, but there was a very strong arm statement made at a previous council meeting where there was well, if you decide to leave the meeting, I'm going to compel the sheriff to bring you back. Well, I'm not quite sure. First of all, as I said, the whole discussion about compelling is multi-part, and it's not a unilateral decision made by the mayor. It's made at the insistence of the remaining council members there. So it's not a unilateral decision that's made. Secondly, I would like to know what compel means. City Attorney, I'll ask you.
Hang on. Make your point. We'll ask you can ask the questions, but you're speaking for now. Okay.
And I've made my point. So I don't believe that word compel means that you ask, not even ask. I think the frame of reference at that point on December 7th was, I'm going to direct the sheriff to bring you back if you leave this meeting. And I do not believe that's to be a proper interpretation of compel. I mean, in my mind, compel means we can ask the city clerk or the city manager to call a council member to please return, and like part 3 of 2-59 suggests, if that can't be done within 30 minutes, that's the end of the meeting. So I would at this point ask the city manager what's his interpretation of compel, and then I'm going to follow that up with the city attorney, and then we can even ask the supervisor of the sheriff's detail here.
We'll go through the council first, and then we'll come back to their questions later. Please note those questions. I'm going to speak about what was said because it's information that's incorrect. I'm going to remind everyone of what exactly happened on December 7th. And you can go back and look at the tape. And I've got Robin next. We had 4 people here. We were having a work session discussion. One individual was speaking, a citizen. I called a point of order. I was interrupted by the vice mayor. That's against our rules. Told me to let them speak or I will leave and you will not get a quorum. I didn't say anything, and then he said, what are you going to do, arrest me? He stood up, held his hands out, and he said, what are you going to do, arrest me? I said, go ahead and do it and watch what happens. I'm going by what our former city attorney told me, okay, and the information is there. Now, he sat down and he concluded the meeting. But if people are going to act up and break quorum and disrupt this meeting, then we will do whatever is on the ordinance. Whether you like the ordinance or not, it's still our ordinance. If you don't like it, we remove the ordinance. There's a procedure for that too. As for whether I thought we were going to talk about meeting remotely and not talk about existing ordinances, because that really isn't in here. But since we're getting way off topic, if we're going to talk about compelling attendance, I already explained what I think the reason was. I didn't pass that rule. That was passed with a prior council many, many years ago. And it's so that you can't have people sitting home. We had 2 members of this council walk out that night prior to the meeting. We had 1 member walk out in the middle of it. You can't do business if everybody's going to go home. As for in-person versus not in-person, the Florida Attorney General's opinions are all over the place. And Fred, I think it's unfair to place this on you to be the Supreme Court and figure out what they're trying to say. I know they're advisory only, but there's plenty of organizations in Florida that are meeting without quorum, right? Without in-person quorum. And this article said that we aren't going to do it. It is not fair, particularly in the middle of a pandemic, that certain people have to come here and other people can take days, weeks, months away from the city and just choose to sit home. I mean, hey, I like sitting home. I can sit there in my slippers and conduct these meetings. I don't have to get in a suit and tie. It's really nice. It kind of puts it a little bit more difficult for those who do come here. I do agree we should have at least 1 meeting per quarter, maybe 1 meeting per half in front of the citizens, no matter what. But after that, there's no reason this stuff can't be done remotely. And if we have to get the Attorney General to weigh in on it, I mean, I think it's just a matter of us changing our ordinance. Anyway, that's what happened. If you want to change 2-59, there's an easy procedure for doing that. Take it away, and then if people want to sit home, then they'll sit home, and we just won't conduct the business. After 4 meetings that you miss, then you're off council. It's that simple. That's what Robin had her hand up there.
No, I was just going to you kind of did a little bit to clarify. And Dave said, you know, I'm not sure why this slide was on, and I was thinking in my head it was on because of that meeting, the drama. And I wanted to point out that it's not a one-sided. It was definitely heated on both sides, and the only reason why it concluded was because I had to start yelling in the microphone and practically stand up and get in front of 2 boys. Pretty much it felt like misbehaving. So I think that the issue why this was put on was probably more of a personal thing than anything else. To me, compel can be whatever it needs to be. Would you please return back to this meeting, or we really need to vote on this, we need a quorum, hey, can you just go pick him up and bring him in real quick with sirens blazing so he gets here faster? I think, again, when I talked about the last meeting, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like every word you can interpret it any which way in law. So I don't think this needs to come out, but what I do think that it never needs to be done. It never needs to be used. And I think that comes back to what Fred was saying about reasonable people, reasonable conclusions, all act like adults, stop getting tempers involved, stop getting hurt feelings, and stop bringing drama from past meetings back. Again, that's what this slide is about, past drama, wanting to relive it, and quite frankly, with these meetings, I am so sick of the drama. This is a tiny city. Our issues aren't nearly as huge as other the big cities. I do not understand why we can't all get along. That's all.
Other council members on the second pass. Third pass, council. Brenda?
I think we have a problem with equating attendance to participation. And that is not true. You can sit at home in your pajamas and participate in a council meeting. Okay, so that basically goes to the argument of, well, they're not here, they're not participating in city government. And again, we have already enacted charter amendments to what happens when you're not participating in those council meetings. So that's a movement. I do believe that business should be conducted gentlemanly, without threats. And that should be how we conduct business. And when you subtract that out of the equation, then things do get heated and tempers flare and passions override critical thinking and discussion. So once again, I want to make sure we all have a common baseline of what this compel is. I think there's no reason we need to go through the machinations of changing that. I just think we need to understand what that means. And I don't believe that I can twist your arm and compel you and bring you back here forcefully to a meeting. No, that's not the gentlemanly way we do business here, and that's not the collegial way this body should operate. So I just want to make sure that that's a common baseline, and I'll defer to the city manager and the city attorney to see if I'm interpreting that wrong or if I'm just completely off the track.
So I'm still with council, then we'll go over to you. We've done 3 passes, so I'm going to go back to the city officials. Attendance versus participation, 1 point, that's the only point I'm going to make. You can sit here, and other than voting, you're not compelled to do anything other than not disrupt the meeting. No one has to say a word. You may not like the topic. You just sit here. You can doodle, subject to public disclosure, but you can sit and draw a sketch. But as long as you sit here, okay? When you go home, and that was not a televised meeting, okay, then you're not in attendance any longer, and then we no longer have a quorum. So I have no problem where a person is. Jody Shirley is on the telephone right now. She is completely participating in this meeting to the extent she wishes to. That's fine. She doesn't have to say a word as long as she votes. That's it. So that's attendance versus participation. I don't think it matters where you are. It really doesn't. And I second what Robin said. I had good comments. Council, anything else? I'm going to the city attorney and city manager if we don't have any other council comments. It doesn't matter the order to me, city attorney, city manager.
Well, I have a whole list of things.
Okay.
The principal thing is state law, which is the Sunshine Law, and that has the requirement that the meetings be in public and the criteria that Vice Mayor Gunn delineated in his presentation. There, of course, is, for a violation of that, there's a penalty, and the penalty is a personal penalty to the 7 of you who are the elected officials if you don't comply with the state law. So to me, that's the starting point. The several people, Vice Mayor Gunn and Mayor Manzo, have said the same things that I have assessment I made reading the article. That was the first time I'd ever seen an article that had all of those up to that point listed. I had at one point or another read many of those Attorney General opinions, and the reality is they are indeed all over the place. And it's, you know, most folks, I hope, realize an Attorney General opinion is an opinion. It doesn't have any binding authority to it. It's basically the current current Attorney General's view of the law at that point in time. The ones that count are the case law, and the case law, I would suspect, is also all over the place. I want to point something out to me that's very significant about 2020. You had to adapt during the pandemic, and the reason that you were able to do the remote meetings is because primarily the governor issued a series of executive orders that gave flexibility to the cities and counties to have meetings so that we could get through the COVID period. As far as I'm concerned, when the executive orders expired, we returned back to the previous regulatory scheme or statutory scheme, which was having the meetings in person. So as much as you may want to revert to that period of time, I would say, absent executive orders or absent statutory changes, I don't know that you're going to be able to do that. I'm going to take a contrarian's view of all I've heard, and I want especially Vice Mayor Gunn to know this. I read all the material you provided, and I pondered it quite a bit over the last 2 weeks or so that I've had to ponder it. It's not the only thing I thought of, though. Thankfully, I had other things to think about as well. But the contrarian's opinion is, if you want the law, there to be a change, then my suggestion to you is that you advocate the legislature to make a clarification that basically is the argument that the law should catch up with the technology. And I think I said before to this council, there's always a lag between the technology and the law, or excuse me, the other way around. There's always a lag between the law and technology, and technology is always in a race to catch up. It never catches up because technology just moves too fast. But I don't know the last time that the Sunshine Law related to public meetings was revamped, but I would say it's been long enough ago that a lot of the technology capabilities were simply not taken into account. And the one good thing out of COVID, if there was ever any, was that people learned to work in a different manner, including this council and other cities and counties all over the state of Florida. But my suggestion to you is, I don't know that I'm that enthusiastic about creating a policy, although if that's what you want to do, I certainly will be up for the task. My hard suggestion to you is to lobby the legislature to change the law so that it's a statewide issue. This is not the only city that's grappling with this type of thing, and I think the beauty in getting the law changed is it takes you out of the potential for somebody asserting that you're violating the law. I'm very much oriented towards safe harbors, and the safe harbor that you have when all 7 of you are here is there's simply no issue, but that with 7 of you present, there is a quorum and there's full debate and discussion of every issue. When you start to have 1 or more or 3 people be absent, I think you get further away from the safe harbor. And I personally would always encourage my clients to pursue the safe harbor, and limit the number of times you're going to venture far from it. The last thing I will say is on the compel issue. That's what Vice Mayor Gunn recited, what's in the city's code. That's a provision that you can change if you want to, because it's in the code. And I will make the observation, compel isn't defined, and the code provision does not delineate the manner of the compulsion. So when the term in legal evaluation, when the term is not defined, then the general principle that is applied is that you use the general meaning that word has. Compel could mean a number of things. And I've heard compel means the sheriff goes and does something, the city manager makes a phone call, the city clerk makes a phone call. All of those could be a manner of compulsion, but I will tell you, and I don't mean to speak for the sheriff, I don't speak for the sheriff, They have their own legal counsel, they're constitutional officers, but there's always going to be, in my mind, a separation of powers issue between us, or in this case, the presiding officer directing the sheriff to do something. I think you will get pushback from the sheriffs on that because they have to be independent. If somebody's standing here that is completely unruly and completely disruptive and have disregarded every reasonable request for them to conduct themselves in a manner that befits the quorum of this type of a meeting, then I think there would come a point where the sheriff would say the person is being disruptive, and they would do something. But I think there's, you get into potentially a difficult situation for them if you try to direct them to do certain things. That's my view, and at some point I may have to talk to their counsel about that if it is an issue. I'll conclude my comments with in a way, a question. And my question is, has this been such a problem up till now that you really need to do something, create a policy to address a problem? During the time that I've been here, you've never canceled a meeting due to a lack of a quorum. And you, I think, have always, and Lynn can speak better to this than I, but the times where there have been people away on vacation or sick, you've had them, the council members, communicating with either Patty, Lynn, or both, and you've, worked things out so that you didn't have a meeting where a lot of people came here and you simply couldn't go hold the meeting. So I'm asking the question, is it really that big of a problem that you need to do something different? And if it is, and it's a concern that is a concern for the future, I'm all for being aware and planning for the, how to do things better in the future. And I think I applaud Mayor or Vice Mayor Dunn, that's absolutely an issue you should be constantly considering. But I, again, will end with, is this really that big of an issue?
City Manager, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, my thing with this Zoom, or whatever you want to call it, I think we found out a lot of things over the past few months, and I had talked to our IT guy about what would I need to do, because I think we gained a lot of public input when we were on those Zoom meetings. And I think that is an important faucet that we need to go forward and move forward to do something in here that we can do that. The council's going to go to iPads here probably in the next few months, because that's part of the budget process. And I think the opportunity, if there's a way for the public to see you visually, and they're at home and they want to call in and talk to the meeting because they don't, they can't get here, or for whatever reason, if there's something that's important. I think it's important that they have that opportunity. And I really thought that we got a lot of people, a lot more people than what we got here tonight, 10 people, okay, roughly. We had more than 10 people on the Zoom calls. So what that tells me is we need to move forward and try to create something. And how we do that is, I think what the Vice Mayor is kind of proposing, is to figure out what's the best way to communicate to the citizens, and what's the best way for the citizens to communicate to you. And, if you're out of town, as an example, like in Jody's case tonight, we need to have that opportunity to make sure that she's heard, possibility she's visible if it's attainable. I think those are the things that, going forward, the council needs to try to get in what I'll call the electronic age. And I'm not in the electronic age. Well, I guess I am, so. I
Still have a flip phone.
Huh?
You still have a flip phone.
Well, no, I have my personal phone, but I have a lot of, I use the iPad regularly and things like that. I have a flip phone because that's what the city provides. But I think this is a step forward, and I don't know what, I kind of heard that from the rest of the council, that this is a positive step forward. And how we create the policy as far as the quorum and the issue, I read that article actually twice, and the guy, there's differing opinions on many, many things in that article. They were all over the place. And so I think going forward, we need to look at this in some way, and the first policy may not be all encumbering, but it's got to be started at this point, I think.
One second, Jody, let me just get Lynn finished and then I'll come over to you.
As far as the compel, I have to go along with this. Compel's a word. I think that the comment that it says at the assistance of the other council members present, I don't think any of us would want, and I would say from the statutory office of the sheriff, I don't think I could, I don't think any council member could, I don't think the mayor could direct them to go get somebody from their house. I just don't think that. And I've had a couple conversations with them, and that's pretty much where they're at with it. So the definition of compel, maybe we need to put something in the ordinance. What does compel mean? That could be what needs to be done, and it needs to be clear if this is going to be an issue. That's my opinion.
Jody Shirley.
Yeah, and just to chime in a little bit of what Lynn was saying, this is the first time I've ever called in. It is extremely difficult to participate from this end. I don't see the electronic communication being a replacement for our live meetings. And, maybe that's where when we look into this further, we address that. So in the case where we're traveling because people are still in business, still living life, don't forget this is a non-compensating position. So, it's not as though, in my opinion, it's volunteer, right? We're not, although we're elected officials, we're still a volunteer position, and that we're giving our hours and our time to the city and to the residents of Bel Air Beach. And so there are going to be times you can't attend a meeting. I find the fact that we can't call in and participate absurd. I just find it unbelievable that we haven't even gotten the technology to provide services for a council member, let alone a resident who wants to participate. So I think it's really important. But again, I don't see that as a replacement for our in-person meeting or still the requirement for. And I feel like that still needs to be priority. But this would be a situation in my driving or traveling or, called away or, what have you. They still have the opportunity to participate.
Thank you. City Attorney, after hearing your comments, I think I have to, our protection always comes when we're siding with what our city attorney tells us is an interpretation of the law. So you're feeling that, there really isn't the option at this point in time for the city council members to routinely participate, in calling a quorum outside of the building, then to me it's a non-starter. That's to me. I don't know what everybody else feels, but I would not vote for something like that. However, I think when it comes to the citizens, there's no such prohibition. So to the extent that we could, and I agree with Lynn Reeves what he said, We counted 10 people here tonight. It's actually decent attendance. Everybody here is at risk, and I applaud everybody for coming out tonight, but you're putting yourself at risk of COVID to come to a council meeting. Wouldn't it be nice if you could be watching this on TV? Victor invited me one time to take a look at Indian Rocks. The technology is there. We did it in the middle of the summer. I was watching their meeting from my bedroom, okay? I have to leave the bedroom. I don't think I was able to participate. I think he got that later on, but you're able to do it if you want. So no reason the citizens can't do it, even if we can't. I am concerned, and I don't ascribe any nefarious motives or anything to this, but there is some concern about people who might be on council, who might be not here for extended periods of time. Clearly, what Councilwoman Shirley is going through tonight is exactly what is envisioned by the Attorney General's opinions. There's a documented medical reason, and thank God, hopefully she'll be okay, but don't come in, okay? That's a good situation, but, if you're away for a week, a month, a year, that's a whole different story, and I think that is a possibility as I look at what might be coming down for this city down the road for some individuals, depending on what happens in the coming election. So it is something to think about. I don't know if people should be permitted to have extended absences. Everybody takes a vacation. Jody's right, it's a non-compensated position. Go take your vacation. But if people are to be gone for an extended period of time, then that's something that has to be discussed on the council as to what the visibility should be. I don't think we're going to resolve this tonight. This is a discussion thing, so we might want to bring this to a work session, but it's only 7 o'clock, so I'll entertain as much discussion as people have. It's relatively early in the night, so. Next. Sheriff, did you want to speak on this issue? You have the information, or do you have to leave?
I had something about it I got to take care of, but in the meantime, we're good.
Council, do you want me to he just wants to give us a piece of information. I think it's going to take a minute. Does anybody have an objection? Sheriff, come on up. We're going to break and go back to the sheriff's report.
In reference to our report from last month, I was able to find it. I can't give you a lot of details. It involves a juvenile, but the long and the short is that a juvenile was in some therapy. I remember an incident that occurred back in July supposedly on a beach, and went to a house, may have been involving some drugs and alcohol, which ended up involving a sexual encounter eventually, and they were embarrassed about it, and at the end of the day, they didn't want to investigate it, parents didn't want to investigate it, but, and so it wasn't taken any further, but we don't know exactly where it occurred either, but it was reported because the person lives in the city. They said it occurred on a beach and at a house, but we didn't ever find out where those locations were, so it was attributed to your stats. However, that doesn't mean it occurred here anyway, if it did occur. Okay?
Does anybody else have any questions on that? Citizens, council? Thank you for the follow-up on that. Really appreciate it. I think it sets us all at ease, and hopefully the person will get the help they need. Okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, back to our discussion. There's no one on the floor. Glenn Dunn.
To address the city attorney's comments. One, is this a real issue? Yes, it's a real issue. We hit our stride at the end of the executive orders by the governor allowing us to take this to Zoom meetings and sort of thing. We were really beginning to hit our stride on that. And now we are backsliding with this. We've got Jody calling in on a phone call who can barely be heard either way. So obviously we're backsliding there. And regardless of how this goes, we need to get the technology in place to allow our residents to participate in this thing. And again, participate and attendance don't necessarily equate to one another. Okay. The second thing is to advocate taking the legislative route. Well, this is a legislative route here, and it's within our sphere of influence. And if you want to talk about lag, let's talk about the legislative process at the state level or at the federal level here. Why not legislate within our sphere of influence when we can get things moving within 2 to 3 monthly council meeting cycles rather than try to ramp up an entire state or Florida League of Cities thing. You want to talk about glacial speed and you want to talk about lag, well, by the time we get something moving at the state level on this sort of thing, we will long be gone. So that's all I will say today.
No, I was just gonna say, going back to this overall issue, I'm in total support of updating our technology, so in the rare cases of like, for example, like Jody tonight, or our residents able to participate if they're not able to come, but I'm not necessarily in favor of complete remote attendance, as in, I don't feel like coming in tonight, because whatever, so let me just do it and it'll still count. Or, we all have vacations, but hopefully you don't have vacations more than 4 of the meetings, so it shouldn't be an issue if you miss one because of vacation I have. But you shouldn't be able to go to a second home, be a snowbird for 6 months and do your meetings from there because A, you're not in the city, and B, if that's what you're signing up for, if that's the lifestyle you want to lead, more power to you, but maybe this isn't a position for you because you need to be involved. And going back to the glacial speed, I agree, government all over the country is very slow. But my interpretation of what Fred was saying is that you don't want to be the first city to do it and something happened where it turns out to not be legal and then all our meetings don't count and our votes don't count at it back. So it's kind of more, to me, I interpret it as a safety in numbers. If 10 cities did it together, then you have more of a leg to stand on. But I agree with you, everything's slow. And I don't think this is going to get resolved on the state level anytime soon, but I think we definitely need to update the technology, but as far as allowing remote attendance at the whim of a person, because you just feel like it, you don't feel like coming in, no. Special instances, yes, so I don't know how to reword that, but that's just my input.
Any other council comments before I open it up to the citizens?
I'd like to address that.
So let me see if anybody else is on the next round. Back to the next round, Bill.
Yeah, and a good point there, and I would recommend that you go through and look at the boilerplate resolution that I provided, because there's actually guidance at the city level for determining what's an excusable attendance or non-attendance. So I agree with you. It shouldn't be at the whim of just, and I think people come to this job to do the best job possible, and I think most people feel here that there's a huge benefit to coming out and meeting the public and the residents, and this is how business gets done. It gets done in person. So what I would suggest is that we go ahead and take a look at the boilerplate and try to come up with a workable solution to this thing. But I think it's something that needs to be done. I think we need to do the technology side of it, and we need to have some allowances for people to excuse themselves from attendance and yet still participate, not be physically present, but participate in the governance of our community. That's all.
Council on the last round here. So now I'm going to open up to the citizen comments. Victor.
I apologize. If I knew I was going to address the city council, I would have put on a tie. But while I'm not technically a resident of your city, I'm hearing this discussion going back and forth, and my mind is turning because you guys are reinventing the wheel. I have other towns that I work for that employ me to do these services for them, and one of them is City of Indian Rocks Beach. And basically what we have set up there, I spent a lot of time with City Manager Greg Mims over there, and we had the same discussions back and forth, what they wanted to do and have participation and have audience participation. And what we set up was a Zoom meeting, and basically I have my cameras that I connect to a computer that streams live to YouTube, to Facebook, to Zoom, all at the same time. So anybody can tune in and watch it, and then whatever's going on in the city council is like a active participant, so the viewers can see my camera focusing on whoever's talking, whether it's a resident that's attending. They also open it up for limited audience, but that to me would be what you guys are looking for, because it just connects everyone and people can come to the meeting or not come to the meeting. If a commissioner is exposed to COVID or feels not safe, then they can just connect to the meeting from their house and do it that way. But whoever's speaking at the actual meeting is captured on the cameras with the system that I have set up for them. So I just thought I'd share, even though I'm not a resident.
You're allowed to speak. No, thank you.
So, perfect.
Any other citizens? bring it back to council. And I will say, again, at Victor's invitation, I did, in the summertime when we were exploring Zoom and the other stuff, I did sit in on one of those Indian Rocks thing. It worked fine. It worked real fine. So it was just like being there and I wasn't there. So that technology is here. He knows it. I'm not saying you have to use it, but he did a great job in Indian Rocks. Anyone else? I think at this point, I mean, I don't think we're going to go through this resolution and pick it apart tonight. It seems to me that there's interest, at least in consensus, if I hear everyone correct, I'm not speaking for anyone but my understanding, but I think we definitely want to look at the technology, we definitely want to discuss this some more, and I think this definitely should get into one of our next work session and try and hammer this thing out so we can bring it back in and see what we do. In the meantime, perhaps the city attorney, again, I'm not asking you to be the Supreme Court. I looked at that thing and, there's 10 different opinions and 10 different reasons, and one says you have to be sick and one says you have to be working. I mean, I don't know what we do with it, but I'll tell you one thing. Whatever you tell me as city attorney is where the protection lies, and that's where I'm going to go with it myself, so.
My response to that would be the real key between now and when you next discuss this is for me to look and see if there's, what case law is there, and I mean, you've looked it up as in your job, I look up stuff. There are times you may find 3 cases, and there's times there's 200, and I don't know which one this will fall into, but there's typically, at some point, if a statute's been around a while, there's a dispositive ruling somewhere along the line, and that pretty well sets the benchmark. And until the legislature changes the law again, that gives you the criteria that you should be applying. So that would be the thing I will do, and then come back and be ready to tell you this is the criteria that you really ought to be focused on.
Fred, is it enough time? Is it enough time for I think we probably have I don't think we even have a scheduled work session right yet, but I mean, typically about 2 weeks from now would be if we do one.
That'd be fine.
That'd be fine? Okay.
The other thing I was going to say is that the discussion kind of changed, and my question is now, do you want to do a policy related to the establishing a quorum, or do you want to do a policy that relates to putting in place technology so that citizens can participate from a remote place? And to me, those are 2 different kind of things.
I think it's all on the table. I think we brought it all out, so I don't think anything was excluded at this point other than the idea of us probably meeting remotely unless we can get something a little bit more firm in terms of case law. But I think everything, at least the way I heard it, everything was on the table, so I don't think we've excluded anything. And I mean, in terms of creating a city-wide policy, Rita Swope had brought this motion, but we can at any point call this question and move this thing forward. But I think where it's moving is not saying we're definitely creating the policy, but we're moving it into a detailed work session with a little bit more information from you and maybe a little bit more chance to review this resolution that Glenn Gunn gave us. Think about this some more so we understand exactly what we're looking for and how we're going to deal with this. Because I agree. I mean, stuff comes up. People do have business arrangements, and what are you supposed to do? You shouldn't have to forfeit an otherwise good career on council because you get called away for a couple of weeks. So I think we should be as flexible as we could be within reason. That's reasonable. What did you say? Reasonable people doing reasonable things, something like that. So.
Yeah, that was a famous quote.
I thought it was yours. Any other council comments? Rita Swope, you have the last word.
Well, I would like to obviously see us move forward with this, so I'm just going to ask that we do put this on the work session and get some information as far as cost to update our equipment, or that gentleman can provide us with a proposal on what he can do and what he can't do. And then at that point, we can look at getting a change made that it's official for our citizens as well as the forum and all of that, so we can take care of it all. That's all I have to say.
So if I get this correct, we're going to, the question was to consider consideration of creating a City of Bel Air Beach policy to specifically address remote attendance as well as a quorum physical presence for the rapidly changing manner of conducting business electronically. So, and anybody jump in if I'm saying this wrong. A yes vote will get this into the committee, get Fred Riley working on this. Victor, if he wants to do a little presentation or some information to us, show us what you've done in Indian Rocks, I think that would be helpful. Everybody get a chance to review this resolution. So we're not killing this, we're just moving it to the, really, I guess, the next level. And I think that's what you were seeking initially, Mr. Glenn. Right? Okay, so is that correct? I've stated it correctly? Okay, then Madam Clerk, please call the roll. A yes vote will bring it forward.
Councilmember Shirley?
Yes.
Councilmember Swope?
Yes.
Councilmember Aki?
Yes.
Councilmember Bean?
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn?
Aye.
Mayor Manta?
Aye, so this will move forward to our next work session. Mr. Riley, as we discussed, please, good luck. Whatever research you can come up with, any case law, or what any other cities may have done will be helpful. Victor, you have the opportunity, just work right through the city manager, give him whatever presentation, or come to that meeting, and if you have the ability, show us what you've done, or, get everyone in on whatever you
At the
want to tell us.
council's pleasure.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that concludes item number 10. Item number 11 is unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business?
Just one thing I want to bring up is the sign.
Mhm.
I gave you a packet a couple weeks ago, gave you some quotes, and I guess what I'm trying to do is find out from the council so we can go forward with this. The sign's been gone for 60, 90 days, and I think it's time to do something. And I know there's mixed feelings about it, and I don't know if you brought your pictures with you tonight, but if you didn't, this was the scenario that we gave for the digital or electronic, just with words, not with flashy pictures, not Santa Claus or any of that. And this is the sign, which is kind of a mixture, which means not much wording that's going to go in this digital, and it's still, I guess how I look at it, it's still a sign that, like we had before, and I think just my recommendation is digital sign provides a better opportunity for things that happen, like a hurricane or information we can get out, we can get it on there remotely. We're not talking about putting pictures up there or anything, we're talking about putting words up there. So the sign, if we even took the digital off and just did this, it's $40,000.
Say it again, we can hear that number.
If we took the digital off this and just made it similar to the sign we had before, the estimate that the guy gave us was $40,000. Of course, it's going to go out to bid. This sign is about $37,000. The duplicate sign is a mixture, and one is $45,000 because it's a mixture sign. So what I would like to do is get this thing out to bid. It's going to take some time. We've got $30,000 in the budget, and we're probably going to receive $10,000 to $11,000 from the insurance. So I think we've got the money to do the project. It's just, I need the council to.
Don't we have to give you this via resolution or some other type of formal instruction, give you the dollars?
Well, you'll have to approve the bid once it's out there. And you've already authorized me to bid. I just want some consensus from the council. Where do you want to go with this? It's time. We've been back and forth on this for, I don't know, several months.
Council?
I'm ready to move forward. Let's take a consensus. You want to do it Indian style?
I don't have my picture. Lynn, the hybrid one, let's go through these prices again. Full digital is $45,000.
No, the digital sign, the estimate he provided us was $37,000. That's the estimate he gave us. When we start mixing, that's when the prices go up, because you're doing some of this and some of that. And he gave us prices of 45 and 47 for mixing them. Then he gave me a price for just what I'll call the old sign, where you had to go out and put the letters up and do things like that. And that was $3,000 more than the digital sign. It's less than so. Plus, it's old technology.
Old technology is expensive.
So.
This is a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's just
I
what's
know
digital
that
want, so-
some of the concern by the council was the fact that we're going to put something like Disney World up there, and that's not the intent. The intent is letters, not, Santa Claus or,
Beach umbrellas?
whatever you want to call it. So I'm just asking the council to kind of give me some direction. The communications committee recommended that we go to the digital sign. That they did recommend that. So I'm just asking you to give me some feedback so we can put this out on the street and see where the numbers come, actually.
I was in favor of keeping the old sign, the old style sign, but if it's gonna cost us more to be digital and more work, that doesn't make sense. So I don't think it makes sense to do that. That's my opinion, so.
I'm actually in favor of the one where you can add the verbiage down here for emergencies like the hurricane and stuff, but this is the one that I would like to go ahead and look at. It was only, what did you say, about 2,000-3,000 more than the one
No,
that
that
we
one,
can do it?
that one's up in the mid-40s.
Okay.
It's several thousand more. What you're doing is you're mixing stuff.
Yeah,
You're still going to pay the premium for the what I want to call the electronic message portion, which is just this. And then you're going to pay on top of that to put this up there also. And your space is limited up also.
okay, but going back to the safety of our community, it'd be nice to have that in case, it is evacuation plan or something like that. So for the safety of the community, I really think we ought to go ahead and spend the additional money and get the one that we can make an announcement when something is really important. So,
I just think you're going to get the same message out with the other.
okay.
Is the one you're holding is straight digital?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask a question about that? That one is still a full color sign, is that correct?
Yes, you can change, you can make it pink or purple if you wanted
Right,
to.
so whenever
It's
something
still-
was important, you could change the color of the text.
Right.
And that sort of would give you the same effect.
Yeah, when there's an emergency like a hurricane, like we had, 6 weeks ago, I could be sitting, I could evacuate and be putting a message up there telling, even though there's no residents here. Well, the ones that
There's
stayed.
usually a few.
There's gonna be a few, because they stayed last time, but at least we'd have information out. We can do it remotely.
Well, that's a good idea, that since we can change the color of the letter, so I would like that.
Robert?
I would say save the $11,000 and go with the digital only. I mean, that will solve everything, change the colors, make important things stand out. It's more advanced
Yes, Jody will be
technology.
next after Robin. Robin?
Say it's time to evolve with the times and go a little more digital.
Jody?
Councilmember Shirley, go ahead.
Okay, so it's hard to decipher because these aren't like labeled A and B or style, X or Y, whatever, but I'm looking at the two you gave us, Lynn. The mixed medium one with the bigger board, informational board, I think doesn't look nearly as nice as the one that's just strictly digital. And you know, I'm not a fan of the digital sign. As long as we are only putting digital lettering in there that's not a constant feed of information, that's stationary, you know, we need to talk about that, how it's going to be utilized. But because it is digital, the message can move. We can put pictures and images out that it can look like Disney World, or it can be a stationary message. And I think that as long as we put some guidance in place of what that message is going to look like, carte blanche to whoever happens to decide what they want to put up there today, that it's probably that the sign with the only digital information is probably the best looking choice, and doesn't look nearly as busy as the one that's a multimedia one. So that's my input.
Any other council comments? And I am going to open this because we're going to take a directional vote here, so I'm going to open it up to the citizens if there's anything. We normally don't do this on unfinished business, but we are this time because we're voting. Citizens, any comments on this? Okay, then we'll come back to the council. If we're ready, we can vote them. I can vote them by price, straight digital, however we want to talk about it.
Well, no, just to clarify, this is what I'm going to put out to bid, because this is from estimates from one vendor. We might get a better price.
Correct.
You know, so.
We got to give you direction of which one we want you to put out to bid.
Yeah,
Okay,
so this is the one I'm recommending.
That's straight, I call that the straight digital one.
Yeah.
$37,000 on this, with this vendor.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? If not, we'll just have Patty take it one at a time.
And the only comment I have is it's a hard pill to swallow and it's very expensive, but
It's a lot of
it has to be done, and I think that's probably the best case scenario.
How do we just take it by person, just ask them what they want, and let's make sure we're clear, and we'll tally the votes here.
Councilmember Aki,
Straight digital.
Councilmember Dean,
Digital.
Straight digital, right? Or
Yes.
mixed, okay, straight digital, that's two.
Councilmember Gaddis,
37,000.
Straight digital, three.
Councilmember Shirley,
The straight digital sign, please.
Councilmember Swope,
Straight digital.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Straight digital.
Mayor Mandel.
Straight digital, so it's unanimous, Mr. Reeves, you know where you're headed now, so see what the best price you can get.
We'll put it out to bid. You've already authorized me to do that, so.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
I had 2 items of unfinished business from the last meeting minutes. Just a quick update, if you can give them to us. And there's one of them, if you don't want to talk about it, don't say anything. The first one was the meeting with Mac McNally regarding the code revision change. I think he was the man who came in here, was asking us to actually change our code, and then we put an option for him to meet with yourself and Councilwoman Shirley. It was an option, I don't know if it ever happened, just following up.
Yes, we did meet with him and our engineer, and I had a discussion with Fred about the definition of habitable space, and I think we've rectified that. I will tell you that over the holidays, they came in with multiple other versions of questions about what our code says and what they would like to do. So this, he didn't really spill the beans, I guess is what I'm saying. He did a 1 hit, and now we're going to do a 5, 6, and 7 hit. So Larry and I have talked, and we're going to send them something back because, you know, he came in, well, I want to raise the elevation of the lot. Well, that's not going to work. It's not fair to the people that live around you. Or I'm going to do something else. Can I put my steps in the setback? Another good example. That we haven't allowed anyone else to do it, and you know, if he wants to submit a variance, that's up to him. But that's just the generalization. It's kind of like, well, we'll start with this, and now we're going to add some things. So.
All Right.
So.
So nothing more for council to do right now. Thank you for following up and,
Yeah, that's,
Second one, which you do not feel compelled to answer. You and the vice mayor were going to talk about supplemental law enforcement. And I don't want to go into any too much detail here, just want to find out if we're moving along in that direction.
I've been out of town for a week, and the vice mayor was, of course, here. So we're going to sit down and talk to that. We did have some over the weekend. I haven't got the report back yet. We'll see how that went. We had 2 days of 4 hours, spotter and deputy. That cost us roughly $1,000 for that 2-day thing. So we'll just pick out some other dates and figure out how we can work it out where we can fit some of that money into just by transferring some money out of maybe code enforcement. And then we'll give you a big number in the end and see if you want more. How's that?
I'll be interested in that report. That was a busy weekend. Good call on the pick. That was definitely a weekend to be seeing what was going on. There was a lot of stuff going on that weekend. So
Yeah,
interesting.
Because we have to do a contract each time. It's not a blanket contract. That's how it works. So, but we've already done that. So we'll come back with something. I'll sit down with the vice mayor and we can have some more discussion. And if any of you have any input, when you think of, a specific date, send me an email. I don't have a problem. Okay?
Any other unfinished business from council? City attorney?
None.
City manager?
Okay. I just wanted to let you know, you've given you the financial and code reports. The bid for the video surveillance cameras in the building is going out on Wednesday. I've also put at your desk the code enforcement, the strategic plan update of what we had with for the staff. These were the objectives that council gave us this year. And, it's kind of an update of where we're going and what we're doing with those. We've taken care of the sign. Occasionally we have someone come in and talk about the check valve's not working. So at the last storm, I decided to get a little salinity tester. It's a little thing you stick in the water because everybody's telling me, oh no, the check valve's not working, it's salt water. So, you stick this thing down in there and get the water test. Well, I did 2 samples. I did one out of the gutter on 9th Street, because I hear a lot about the check valves not working over there. And the gutter water came in, the salinity was at 270 parts per million. The salinity for the salt water that's sitting right out here, that's supposedly coming in the street also, was 4,291 parts per million. So it's just something that I kind of devised, so when we hear those things, we can go back and kind of test the water, and it's layman stuff, but at least we can be able to explain that, hey, it's not the check valve, it's just water that's in the street from, the storm or something. So, that's something we did. And the people that Bellevue Island Estates are probably going to be very happy because they're going to get a Bel Air Beach stimulus check. The people that paid will get some money back, depending on what they did. If they had undergrounding, they'll get about $2,300 back if their house was already undergrounded, if they prepaid up front. If they had overhead and prepaid, they'll get about $1,800 back. What that does to the assessment, the people that had overhead to their house and the undergrounding, their $1,611 is going to be reduced somewhere around $240. These are estimates right now, but they look pretty good. The person that just had the $1,267 assessment, which is that you already have your services to the house. They'll get back about $139. When I say 139, that means your $1,267 assessment's going to go down 139. If you had the 1611, it's going to go down about 240, which we will take that excess money that's left over. We'll pay that down on the loan to get the assessment down. There's, I think it's 25 people that paid everything up front, so they'll get a reimbursement check. So we'll firm these numbers up. We had a savings of about $380,000 so over the project. So very fortunate. The last phase of it, I haven't got a definitive answer from Duke on when they're going to finish that last phase, which is basically going down the road. Shouldn't interrupt anybody other than probably Mitch Croc's house and the house across the street for taking the final poles out. So that's just an update on that project. It started out at $2.2 million and it ended up about $1,830,000. So, and that was a lot of great support from the council members and the residents. And very helpful. So, I want to thank, I think that is very important to pass on to the residents in the neighborhood. They worked very well with the contractor. They, if we had issues, they worked very well with that. We're getting ready to go. We've submitted for a bid for the undergrounding of Gulf Boulevard from Duke. And I don't know what the council's thought is, but I've got a thought that we maybe see if it's possible to put even solar lights in place if we've got the money in the budget to do that, to eliminate that monthly cost. So, any questions? That's all I have.
I had one unrelated, but before we do that, you beat Washington. Congratulations on the stimulus note going back to the beach. So good job with that. Unfortunately, I got one of those mayor calls today, and the person asked that I bring it up at the council meeting. So I want to bring it up, and I didn't investigate it. I got this information this morning, so I'm just going to send it to the city manager. Perhaps a visit will end the problem. But Patricia Hoffman.
You don't have to go any further.
You know all about it?
I know all about it.
Okay. I guess they've written 2 legal letters. Can you just go out and, apparently these construction people across the street will not move and they can't get out of their driveway. I guess her husband, Dr. Hoffman, is treating COVID patients at the emergency room. He can't get out of his driveway. So I heard this, I'm like, you know what, let me get this over to Lynn. And apparently Danny Doherty was very, very helpful. Maybe we could just explain to these guys across the street in the construction that they got to keep the driveways area free for them.
Well, here, just to clarify this, there's a little problem there because the guy's building it, just because this lot is across the street, her driveway is there. If they bring a truck up to unload, we'll say lumber, to build the house, and they're on the other side of the street, that's still leaving that pass lane for them to get out of their driveway. I don't think at any time the driveway has been blocked. It's just that there's been a truck across the street. And the other morning, I got an email last week that said, the workmen are here before 7 o'clock. Well, were they working? No. They were coming to work. There wasn't a hammer knocking or anything of that nature. So this is an ongoing situation. And unfortunately, on 15th Street, 2 vacant lots, 2 houses at the same time, next door to each other.
What happened to, I know I had to do this, and I think you even took pictures of mine because I did it so well, but you used to have to put in parking pads on your property so that you got the cars off the street. Do we still?
Well, no. What the biggest complaint has been is them delivering materials to their construction site. And it's only that one person. No one else on the street has said anything. There is a person that's questioning some drainage on the back of the one lot, which we'll get that resolved when the construction is done. But just like when your house was built, you probably drove unless you did it all in a pickup, you had a tractor trailer come up, and they unloaded the supplies and took them off the truck and put them in your yard. Well, you probably took half the street or a third of the street, so the house across the street had to make a little better turn backing out of the driveway. Happened to me the other day on my street, where...
Hey, Lynn,
Yes,
can I add to that? I was actually leaving the other morning. It was probably 7 a.m. They had 2 tractor trailers of block being delivered. There is nowhere for them to pull except the turn lane going, they took us off Boulevard. And then they have to offload with forklifts. And that is just part of construction. I mean, there is no way around it. They were there, I appreciate they were there early. It was cumbersome. I was a little aggravated, but it's part of construction, as part of
yeah, so,
when we have new construction on the beach.
No, no, no.
They handled it, the 2 guys driving the truck handled it very professionally and did their best, but they got this book they could, but they still parked on Gulf Boulevard. It's a turn lane on the causeway. And they did their best job to get offloaded as quickly as possible and out of there. So I commend them for doing a good job.
yeah, so, Danny's been there many times, I've talked to, it's just an issue with, and you're really in the early stages of these houses, so we're gonna hear about this for a long
They
time.
have my number, so I'm sure I'll hear about it. Look,
But I'll call her again.
thank you, and Danny, they were very happy apparently with his visit, so maybe utilize that to the best of, what you can. I'm not taking sides, I don't know what happened, I wasn't out there, and I'm not gonna go look at people unloading stuff. It is as Jody says, it's part of construction, but if you can't really get out your driveway, that's a different story, so we kind of want to work together.
Every time that I've been there when it's been a situation, the truck has been on the edge of the property or partially in the street. So yes, that guy probably did have his forklift out, and he did. He had his forklift out. He went out in the street, picked up the lumber, and drove around the truck and went to the other side because he wants to be stable, picking it off the truck. Any house that's built, unfortunately, it's a situation where there's 2 houses being built at the exact same time. And
You're aware of it, so whatever. Yeah, what?
Interestingly, I went down and looked at that situation, and more concern for me, and I've already discussed this with the city manager, is the damage being done to the streets, the pavements, and the curbs, the valley curbs there. And we talked about coming up with some idea. I mean, we live in a highly desirable area. People are going to buy lots, put up large homes, which means lots of concrete trucks, lots of blocks, things like that. And we need to start figuring this into perhaps how do we pass that through to the owner or to the contractor or somebody, but we can't always be following around these new homes, repairing valley curbs and things like that. So I just want to interject that. That'll be coming up in some of these objectives.
And I think that's an excellent point. I mean, I know when I did mine, you came out and visited and said you were going to repave the street. So up until that point, we were trying to be as careful as possible. We were a little less careful after that. But why can't we charge a deposit when somebody is building a big house, something big, and just like a security deposit on a rental property, you get it back, and Lynn goes out and takes pictures before the thing. And if you, like Glenn is saying, the valley curbs are all cracked and the streets all gouged up, well, there's going to be an assessment for that. You're not going to get your refund back. You keep it clean, you don't gouge it all up and destroy it. Because really, we can't keep replacing this stuff. Some of these streets are brand, you're doing them brand new, and then people come in and trash them up. So we don't want that. That's not progress.
yeah, the vice mayor and I talked about that, doing something where we can,
Like a returnable impact fee?
Deposit?
I'd rather have an impact.
Yes, Jody? Okay. Jody?
Yeah, just real quickly on that subject, I had mentioned this early on when I was elected, but I think that we need to really take a look at our impact fee, one, or have a builder bond some road improvements because there is a possibility it'll damage them. But I certainly do believe that we should be charging a little more impact fees because the damage they're doing to roadways are incredible. I mean, and I'm probably one of those guilty parties. I live on Harrison Avenue and there's a weight limit on our bridge. And there's been a lot of houses built that require heavy concrete trucks and blocks to come over that bridge that probably exceeded the weight limit. But, you know, I think that this is a conversation for a work session, but it would be impact fees or just getting a planner, hiring a professional planner to take a look at our city and talk about how are we going to handle new construction? What's the best way to handle it? But maybe we should add that to the work session next time.
Everyone's nodding yes, it looks like, so yes, can we add that, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
These deposits, what, you know, let's have a discussion of this.
And the last thing, you're gonna need to, typically, third Monday work session is a holiday.
Yes.
So we need to pick another, either Monday or another day that's compatible with the council.
And just keep it that same week, go Tuesday or Wednesday. That's Martin Luther King's birthday, I believe, right?
Yes.
Is that the holiday? Yes.
It's up to you.
I'm available, so I'll defer. Wednesday? Everybody day after the holiday?
If you wanna do it that week, pick a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, what's the best?
Tuesday would work. Tuesday?
What specific date?
I think it's the 16th,
I think so.
be a Tuesday. Is that right?
It might be the 18th, I don't know.
16th, 15th?
That would be the 19th. I'm not available that night. That would be the 19th. I am not available that night.
Oh, no, not later.
We typically do the third week, so.
20th? What about Wednesday, the 20th?
I'm fine with that.
What day?
Wednesday,
I'm
the
good with
20th.
20th.
Wednesday, when did you say Wednesday the 20th?
Yes.
Wednesday the 20th, everyone good with that?
Jody, can you hear that?
I can't hear what they're saying.
Wednesday the 20th for the work session, would that be good?
Yes, that's fine.
Wednesday the 20th it is. When is there, I thought I saw something about a candidates night, League of Women Voters, when is that?
Oh,
That's Thursday, the next night.
Okay. So there's be some.
It's gonna be virtual.
Okay, okay,
It's gonna be virtual.
okay. Oh, it's virtual? Okay. Okay, so Wednesday the 20th. And Patty, you'll advise us when the deadline is for any other items in the work session.
Yes.
Okay. City Manager, anything else?
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. City Clerk?
Nothing?
City Clerk, I have something for you, and it's a good thing. Last month, we spoke about writing a letter to the city of Madeira Beach, and they had provided us with some detailed letters that were written by Mayor Serrano, and Patty knew about it, and I saw her in the parking lot, and she said, I sent them to you, and I said, oh, thank you, and I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to edit them. She said, I already did. I can't thank you enough. I was super, super heavy, busy that week. I don't think I would have gotten them out. Patty, just so everybody knows, edited those things right down. I didn't have to change one word. I virtually signed them, they went out, and thank you very, very much. You made that happen, and I never asked you to do it. You just did that on your own, so very great proactivity, and very much appreciated. Thank you. City Council comments. It's an odd month, so we start with Rita Swope.
Yes, I just would like to make sure that I thank Councilmember Shirley. She's the one that put together that luncheon, not the city, for our sheriff's officers as well as the city staff. Great turnout. It was paid for and sponsored by many of the people that live in our community. So I would like to encourage her to make that a yearly event and continue to grow it. So I hope you consider that, Councilmember Shirley. Other than that, I thank also the city staff for all the work you done over the holidays, making sure everything ran smooth. That's all I have.
Thank you. Jody Shirley.
Rita, thank you so much. I appreciate you that, because I was concerned when Rick Shock spoke that we didn't share the information. But I did talk about the fact that we were going to do that at the December 7th meeting, I believe it was. And it was a very, very short notice, but we got approval from the sheriff, and I had a very supportive, a small group of residents that were aware of it and reached out to me to help. And we raised quite a bit of money on short notice. We were able to provide lunch for 12 distributors and give them each $30 of gift certificates for local businesses that, provided them coffee or lunch or what have you. So we went to a Maggie Mae's, Bel Air Coffee, and the Bel Air Market. And we had a great support from residents that Patty had, kept a tally of the money that was donated, and we still have funds available. So if this is something that everyone wants to participate in, that we can do more of a widespread city participation, we could probably look to do something again in the spring. I believe we have over $100 sitting in a reserve account for future opportunities. So something we can talk about later, but just to let everyone know. And then also, yes, Lynn, thank you for sharing that we met with Matt McNally with Gold Star Homes. Sorry to hear that, we still have some open issues with him. I thought we took care of that, but it's regarding the meeting again on the 7th, where they want to build a home and get powered. So hopefully we get to the bottom of that and get them started on a new project that will bring us some more revenue to the city. So thank you guys for participating, and sorry I couldn't be there tonight.
Thank you, Jody. Hope you feel well. Dave Gaddis.
Basically, all I want to say is I'd like to encourage the council to, while we're discussing policies for virtual meetings during troubled times, that we move simultaneously to go ahead and do something, get some equipment in here. I don't want to wait. I don't want to kick it down the road until we've come up with a perfect policy. And this is something we should have already had. The communication committee recommended it. We were discussing it. COVID's been here for a long time now, a year. It's time to resolve this and give everyone the opportunity to dial in from their home if they want to. And that's about all I have.
Thank you, Dave. Mark Dean.
Lynn, this is kind of a question for you. We periodically talked about the stormwater easements throughout the city between the homes. I just wonder if we have, if they've worked on collecting where they're at, or at least put them on a map as far as Kyle.
Yeah, we haven't done anything with that. We've got all the piping and everything is on a map, so we know where they're at. We haven't researched any easements, because that's going to take some time to dig through, because we don't have any, to my knowledge, we don't have any real file of the easements that may have been given. As an example, I've got a house that wants to construct on, I think it's 3rd Street. There's an easement going through their property, but we don't even know what it's for. So we're doing research to find things like that.
Right. And the other one, I know we talked about the sewer lines from Causeway to 19th Street. We
Right.
don't know which way the sewer goes in that area, and I just wondered if we've been able to find out just where it goes so we can find out where the easement is.
Well, just before Christmas, I had a meeting with Pinellas Utilities, and they're going to provide me something, but it won't be what I want to call a public record, because they don't want to share the utility locations. They basically say it's a security issue. But they're gonna provide me with something if I need to look for something. So they're in the process.
And the other thing, then, I know we discussed the pathways on the north and south side of the city and the
Well,
problems with utilities and the pathways that need to be moved.
well, the utilities, there is some in the Florida statutes that say if it's a transportation project, you can request them to move them at no cost to you. I know that for a fact because I used it where I was previously. We need to do a little more discussion on the pathways, because my thought is if we are going to pave them, then we need to do that with the stormwater project, so it's not a big chunk. 'Cause the estimate we got was $165,000 to do that, and I think that in pieces. And I have had some feedback from some of the neighbors that don't want to pave. So, but we have to figure out where we want to go with that, and how you want to handle it.
Okay, then, I've driven through the city a couple of times over the holidays, and there's a lot of low-hanging trees, and some trees that are by the street curbs, the valley curbs.
Well, Danny, we had a list that he went around and sent. I think it was like 30 properties where he left courtesy notices, and he is following up on the people that are supposed to trim the trees. We did that with trees, we did it with docks, we did it with seawalls, and, you know, it's going to be a process, because we basically took pictures. Dave and Jody were kind enough to take us out. Dave took me out before the storm, and Jody took Laura out after the storm. So we had multiple pictures, and the code enforcement person is following up on that.
Yeah, some of my neighbors are very concerned about some of the docks that are rickety out there, and there's really nothing like going on since the storm went through.
Right, he's given them a courtesy notice if there's damage, or there is, Dave and I went out. There wasn't a major, I wouldn't say there was any major seawall damage. It was more cracked caps, you know, across the top, and pieces falling off. For the most part, the seawalls were in pretty good shape. So that's a good thing. And it appears that over the years, a lot of people have upgraded their seawalls. It's just the cap on some of them has some chunks out of them that they've got to get those repaired.
I know some of the information I gave you that you reviewed, they're recommending weep holes put in.
Right.
I know the older seawalls do not, so we don't have a code for it anyway, but something to think about. Okay, thank you very much.
Abenaki?
I know we've talked about this before, I'm surprised Marv didn't bring it up, but speed limit reduction, we talked about it on golf, possibly. What do we need to do to get that discussed more, or?
I think you need to discuss it at a work session.
Okay.
And then whatever the requirements of the council is at that point in time.
Patty, can we add that to the next work session, just to start the conversation? I just don't want to keep kicking it down. I'm talking about for golf boulevard. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Glenn?
As an alternative, those people who have access to FaceTime, you may consider that as an alternative for calling in here. My experience has shown that the voice and sound quality is a lot better, and there's plenty of iPads floating around the city staff, and you might be able to get a visual on who's speaking and that sort of thing. But I just throw that out there as an alternative. The sound quality is much better on FaceTime if you could do that. Two, city manager passed out the updated objectives. I implore everybody to take a look at that and sanity check the priorities there. The city manager is astutely starting to see linkages in some of these things that may take it out of just the regular, normal sort priorities. So take a look, and in your mind, if you can pick up connections between some of these things, hey, you know, there may be efficiencies or economies to doing this earlier or later, because just like the paving, the pathways may be more appropriate with the stormwater improvement sort of things there. Interestingly, traffic congestion is number 4 on his list right now, and a hard question we may need to ask ourselves is whether or not we need to keep that island that's right there at Causeway and Gulf Boulevard, because that seems to be a huge major source of, I digress there. Undergrounding, major kudos to Lynn Reeves and Mark Beam. They're the guys who really made those coming in under budget possible. I mean, some of that was lost in the translation, you know, a misinterpretation of a stimulus check to the BEI resident as well. Basically, these guys made that project come in under budget. We're still dealing with trying to get some of the other stuff done, but that's why money's coming back. And that's really a segue into, I ride my bicycle around, and boy, this place could really be something if we started banding together some of these other streets. Hibiscus, all those roads back there on the north side, Harrison, Howard, all of those places could really be a show place. And it's a matter of just finding the trick we need to band these together and make it an economy of scale to get these things done. But when you look at some of the work that's been done, it could be a huge improvement for the city. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't have any comments, so with that, I'm asking for adjournment. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming out.